Okay, let's dive right into this terrifying explainer. We're unraveling the rules of a dark, supernatural phenomenon where literally just looking at something can be your deadliest mistake. Imagine a world where your primary sense, your sight, is completely weaponized against you. Today, we're breaking down a chilling source story about a sudden, apocalyptic event brought on by an entity known simply as the Black Tornado. We're going to look at the incredibly strict rules of survival, the intense government protocols, and how one tiny, everyday oversight turned a massive rescue mission into an absolute nightmare. Let's get into it. So, picture this. You're sitting in total pitch black darkness. You've been traveling for hours, you're exhausted, you're terrified, and then you hear a kid's voice say something chilling on this evacuation train where every single passenger is strictly blindfolded to survive. The kid says, "Take it off. You all take it off. The view outside is so beautiful." I mean, it sounds so innocent, right? But in the context of the Black Tornado, those words are literally a death sentence. To truly grasp why an innocent invitation like that is so lethal, we need to understand exactly what happened on that train. Part 1. The Train of Death. All right, so 2.5 hours into what was supposed to be a perfectly safe, tightly sealed evacuation train ride, everything goes horribly wrong. Hundreds of villagers had been rounded up, loaded onto these specially sealed train coaches, and given one supreme, non-negotiable directive: do not remove your blindfolds under any circumstances. They were just half an hour away from a bridge and their final safe stop. But then, the train just inexplicably halts mid-journey. The doors suddenly swing wide open, and a calm voice casually starts inviting people to look at the gorgeous scenery outside. Thinking they'd safely arrived at the station, the passengers took off their blindfolds. And just like that, an entire coach committed mass suicide. It's wild. But how does this even happen? What exactly is out there making people do this? Part 2. Rules of the Black Tornado. So this threat, known as the Kalabawander or Black Tornado, isn't just your standard physical storm that rips roofs off houses. No, it's a psychological and supernatural weapon, and it operates on some extremely strict, unyielding conditions. Looking at it directly with your naked eyes, that forces you to immediately end your own life, which is horrifying enough on its own, right? But if you view it indirectly, say through a window pane, a rearview mirror, or a security feed, you undergo this terrifying transformation. You don't die. Instead, you become a sleeper agent. Part 3. Chalia, the Invisible Enemy. Because this tornado can't easily break into sealed homes or strong bunkers, it uses those indirect victims as its foot soldiers. They become what's called a shalia, which translates to deceiver. And the scariest part? A shalia doesn't look like some grotesque monster. They look and sound exactly like everyday people. It could be someone begging for help outside your Jeep, or even your own innocent child. Their sole purpose, their absolute overriding compulsion, is to trick normal, healthy humans into taking off their blindfolds and looking directly at the tornado. They retain all their memories, their normal voices, their personalities, which makes them incredibly manipulative. You literally can't tell the difference between a desperate survivor begging for a ride and a shalia trying to get you to open your door so they can kill you. To counter this absolute nightmare, the military enforced a super strict 3-step protocol for the evacuation train. They even used small bells tied around people's necks so anyone moving in the dark could be instantly heard. Think about how claustrophobic and tense that situation is. You're blindfolded, you're forced to wear a bell, you're ordered not to speak, not to shift in your seat, literally not to do anything for 3 straight hours. The military knew that previous evacuations had completely failed because shalias had sneaked on board, so the bells were this brilliant, low-tech early warning system. If a shalia tried to stand up to open a window or a door, the bell would ring and boom, the soldiers and passengers would be instantly alerted. Let's trace the timeline of one specific family to see how this plays out: Vijay and his young son Chintu. For them, the evening escalated rapidly from a simple village warning to an absolute nightmare on the tracks. At 7:30 p.m., the warning sirens blared. Vijay, Chintu, and his daughter had just half an hour to blindfold themselves, pack up, and drive to the station to catch the 8 o'clock p.m. train. And they made it. They got on the train, followed all the rules, and sat in total silence. But then, at 10:30 p.m., the train abruptly stopped, and that horrific tragedy we discussed earlier completely unfolded. Part 4. That one fatal mistake. Okay, so here's where it gets crazy. When the military finally secured that stopped train, they found out that Vijay's son, Chintu, was missing from his seat. He was the one wandering the aisles. He was the one who pulled the emergency chain to stop the train, and he was the one telling people the view was beautiful. But wait a second, how did a young boy get infected in the first place? The government deliberately designed this evacuation train without any glass windows, specifically to prevent that indirect exposure. And Vijay argued that his own Jeep was completely open. No windshield, no side glass, so theoretically, it was completely impossible for Chintu to have looked through glass and become a Chalia during the drive to the station. So what happened? Well, it all comes down to a tiny, fatal detail before they even left their house. Before leaving, Chintu had to guide his blindfolded father's Jeep out of the driveway. To do this, he looked at the home's CCTV monitor and inadvertently witnessed the black tornado indirectly through the screen. Man, this is such a fascinating and tragic modern twist on those survival rules. Vijay couldn't see to drive the Jeep out of their gate because he was already wearing his blindfold. Chintu, just trying to be a helpful kid, used the security camera feed inside the house to verbally guide his dad's driving. And in that brief moment, the black tornado passed right through the camera's view. Chintu saw it on the monitor. He didn't die because it was an indirect look, but instantly, his mind was hijacked. This one fatal mistake meant a Chalia was patiently sitting right beside his father the entire time, just waiting for the absolute perfect moment to take off his bell and unleash total chaos. Look at the calculated patience here. It's terrifying. Chintu, now a deceiver, blindfolded himself, got in the Jeep, boarded the train, let the military tie a bell around his neck, and sat in absolute dead silence for 2.5 hours. He literally waited until they were almost at the safe zone. Then he carefully slipped the bell off so it wouldn't make a single sound, left it on his seat, pulled the emergency chain, and opened the doors. He systematically destroyed that entire coach. Part 5. The Eyeless Protector. With the train completely compromised, the survivors are forced to abandon it and take a backup cable car system over a really dense forest to reach the final safe zone. Now, an army soldier, who realizes Chintu is the Chalia who pulled the train chain, isolates the boy in a separate cable car with him to protect everyone else. Vijay is absolutely frantic. I mean, he refuses to believe his own son is a monster, but the soldier is deeply pragmatic about it. He forces the father to ride safely in a different car with his daughter. So now, it's this incredibly tense, high-stakes ride hanging over a dark abyss. And up in the air, isolated with the soldier, the boy begins his tricks. In a truly visceral moment, when Chintu tries to trick the soldier into removing his dark glasses to look outside, the soldier reveals a horrifying sacrifice. He says, "I was tired of seeing the beauty of the world, so I plucked my eyes out." Yeah. Chintu kept pushing and pushing, telling the soldier how beautiful the world was, begging him to take off his glasses. The soldier finally agrees, but when he pulls the glasses away, there are no eyes there. To make absolutely sure he could perform his duty during this apocalypse without ever falling victim to a Chalia's trick or accidentally seeing the tornado, this soldier had literally blinded himself. Talk about absolute dedication to survival. Part 6. Is the danger really over? So obviously the soldier's extreme lack of sight made him completely immune to the Chalia's manipulation. I mean, against a man who's physically removed his own sight, the monster's entirely powerless. But they still had the physical threat of the black tornado actively pursuing them. Luckily, it turns out this supernatural storm has geographical limits. It literally cannot maneuver through thick, dense forestry. As the cable car travels deeper over the woods, the tornado stops right at the tree line. And here's where it gets interesting. The Chalia state acts almost like a Bluetooth connection. Once out of range of the master signal, the tornado, the connection drops entirely, and Chintu just suddenly passes out from pure exhaustion. They finally arrive safely. The military assures the panicked father that while Chintu is still technically infected, the Chalia persona only activates when the black tornado is nearby. The father is reunited with his son, who now just looks like a sleepy, exhausted little boy again. The military explains the grim reality of the situation. Chintu isn't permanently cured. But as long as they stay in the safe zone, far, far away from the tornado, he is perfectly harmless. He'll basically live a normal life under military observation, serving as a dormant vessel. The immediate threat is contained, but this explainer leaves us with one haunting question to ponder about those who actually survived the black tornado. What happens if the weather changes? What happens if the storm finds a way around that forest? We're left with this incredibly tense reality where a father has to look at his innocent son every single day knowing that an invisible, murderous deceiver is sleeping just beneath the surface, waiting for the right breeze to wake up. And honestly, that lingering psychological dread, That is what makes the rules of the black tornado so profoundly terrifying. So what would you do in VJ's shoes?